Hello everybody, I'm Axel1324 and welcome to my channel. The credits have finally rolled on another game, and today I'm going to give you guys my review of Psychonauts 2. Let's get into it. Great 3D platformers are more rare than we would like to admit these days. When people think of great 3D platformers, they think of games such as Mario, Banjo, Conker, Crash Bandicoot, Spyro, and it doesn't leave too much space for new 3D platformers to come into the mix. However, there have been some great ones. A Hand in Time, Snake Pass, I believe, is another great 3D platformer, but Psychonauts 2 is also a fantastic 3D platformer, and it was a fantastic 3D platformer with the original Psychonauts. So now it's been 20-ish years, and we finally got a sequel. And so in this review, I'm going to go give you guys my thoughts of Psychonauts 2. I'm going to rate every category from 0 to 10 and tell you guys what I believe the final score of this game is. We're going to start things off with the graphics. The graphics of Psychonauts 2 are really nothing to write home about. It's got a kind of mix of a cartoony, cel-shaded style approach, and it works very well for the game. The characters are drawn to life this way. It's got more of a Pixar-ish approach to the graphics. There really is no big realism in Psychonauts 2. You are definitely not in our world, you're in their world. Even the humans in Psychonauts 2 don't look like you and I. They look very different. And I love this. Every character is different, every character is unique. Even the characters that are related look different. And you'll find that out more when you see Raz's family. Raz himself is greatly done, greatly animated, and his motions are intentional. You can always tell what he's doing. Well, obviously you can tell because you're pushing the buttons, but he's very responsive to it. Everything has a good animation to it. There's really no choppiness to speak of on the graphics. I played this on the Xbox Series X, so that is the version I am reviewing. Overall, the graphics were good, not fantastic, so I'm giving these a 7.5 out of 10. The soundtrack to Psychonauts 2 is really meh. I'm sorry, it really is. The soundtrack itself didn't have any songs when I was playing that I'm just like, wow, this song is really good. This is a good beat. It had good music for each level you were in. Each track definitely related to the level you were in. If they wanted to do eerie, if they wanted to do spooky, if they wanted to do fun, if they wanted to do hippie. Each track was appropriate, but I don't feel that any track really stood out. I don't think anybody's going to be really out there dying to get the soundtrack to Psychonauts 2. It's appropriate, it's not bad, but it's not amongst the greats in the gaming world as of right now. Even the song with Jack Black. So Jack Black and Tenacious D came in and they recorded a track, and I was so excited to hear it, and it got interrupted. And it was good, it's good, but that's almost the most memorable part of the whole soundtrack. So the soundtrack doesn't really impress me much, but it doesn't disappoint. Don't get me wrong, it does not disappoint. The sound effects are good. Nothing really had any weight to it. When you were punching, it sounded kind of like a whooshing sound. When you were shooting, it sounded like a pew-pew sound. When you were bouncing, it sounded like you were, rolling a bubble, which is, well, that's exactly what you were on. Nothing in the sound effects really was punchy, if you will. You didn't really feel it. But it was all very appropriate. This is what I'm getting. The sound kind of took a second beat to everything else. Everything was very appropriate, and the sound only elevated it. But the sound by itself didn't really carry this game, which is not necessarily a bad thing. Overall, for the sound, I'm giving Psychonauts 2 a 7 out of 10. The soundtrack didn't Didn't do anything great, didn't do anything wrong. Same thing with the sound. It didn't do anything great, didn't do anything wrong. It's average, which is about a 7. The presentation. Now, this is where Psychonauts really took it up 10 notches. Very rarely do you get to play a platformer with a story that is just so well told, so well choreographed that it challenges, other genres, stories told in other genres. Everything about Psychonauts was paced perfectly. Everything about Psychonauts 2, the story in Psychonauts 2 was told well. The levels themselves told stories. You're in a casino level, you're in a tooth level, you're in a water level, you're in a... what were some of the other levels I ran into? You were on the beach levels, sailing around. Everything was appropriate. You weren't just in these levels randomly like a lot of 3D platformers do. They throw in the, oh, here's the opening level, now you get the required water level, the required ice level, the required desert level, the required this and that level, just for the sake of having level variety. Psychonauts 2 gave you such good levels and level designs, and the presentation was so good. There was a reason why you were in a library level. There was a reason why you were over here, and it showed you how you got there. It showed you why you were there and what you were trying to do. The level was not just in there, and it all had to do with this amazing narrative, which had several plot twists to it. The story in Psychonauts 2 is an incredible story of friendship and heart, and what it means to give people second chances. And the fact that it also tells a story that we all have our inside, the bad things inside ourselves, and that we do the right thing and keep those things pushed away because, well, that would make us a bad person, and that's not who we want to be. The old saying, think before you speak, because you don't want to say something you'll regret, is kind of the whole plot line of Psychonauts 2. Think before you do things, or think before you act, because you don't want to become this bad person. Everything that is done in Psychonauts 2, through the story, through the levels, through the dialogue, is great. The presentation in Psychonauts 2 is top notch. It is a 10 out of 10. Definitely up there with the best of the best narrative games ever written. On to the gameplay, and as you know me, gameplay is king. The reason 3D platformers aren't considered great sometimes is because it's very hard to have great gameplay in a 3D platformer. Psychonauts 2, though, knocked it out of the park. Exploration was there. If you wanted to double jump, your power-ups, you could buy power-ups to your powers. You can enhance three powers through a pin system that you had going on. To reach other areas, you had to know how to grind. It wasn't just jump on this and mindlessly grind. You had to avoid dead ends. You had to turn around. You had to make jumps. And every jump felt appropriate. Like if you wanted to jump over here, if you understood the mechanic, you were going to make it. And everything was responsive on Psychonaut. Your powers, the animation to execute that power, you had to take that into effect. You couldn't just spam your powers either. Each one of them had a meter, a psychic meter that would wear down. So you had to use them. And you had to swap between powers mid-battle sometimes. Certain enemies were weak to some psychic powers and other enemies were not. And it led to this great variety of gameplay and great variety of bosses, of encounters. The bosses were great too. Psychonauts did have some great bosses in them. I especially like fighting Maligula because you and all the other interns and your family all took part into this role of bringing down Maligula, bringing her down or locking her away. And she was powerful and you felt underpowered against her, and I like that. I don't want somebody to be just a pushover. At the same time, I don't want them to be a bullet sponge, and Maligula was not a bullet sponge. She was appropriate. And so are all the other bosses. right? I remember there was a boss I was fighting. There were a bunch of puppets in an eating level, a food level, and one of them kept throwing up on the ground. And for a long time, I was getting hurt by the ground when I remembered that, hey, I have this bubble that I can roll on that will not only clear that protects me from whatever it is I'm stepping on the ground. So I got on that bubble, and not only was I protected, but it also got rid of the poison or whatever it was that was on the ground. Psychonauts 2 just felt so responsive. Everything played well in it. It's definitely a great game with great responsive gameplay. The gameplay, there's very little to really complain about. There are some jumps that you miss because it's a 3D platformer. You're going to miss jumps for no reason. For you thought you made it, and it turns out you had a depth perception problem. At least I do. Maybe it's because I have glasses. But overall, I have no complaints on the gameplay. It was very good and very responsive, and the power-ups were very cool. They definitely helped with engagements, and trying different side powers on different bad guys led to different results, which adds to the variety of the encounter. I really enjoyed that. So the gameplay for me gets a 9 out of 10. It's definitely great. Psychonauts 2 was a fantastic journey from beginning to end, and it was memorable. The story was engaging, and it made you want to keep playing to find out what's going to happen. The levels were interesting. The psychic powers, the more you learned, the more you got them, and the more little, power-ups you unlocked for them changed the dynamic of it. The graphics were great. The music was great. Nothing wrong with any of it. And Psychonauts just really is a fantastic game. Everybody should play it. I'm going to give it an 8.5 out of 10. That is my official score for it. And it is definitely up there with some of the greatest platformers we've ever seen. Yeah, it's not a 10 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 or whatever. But the story is definitely amongst the best stories in gaming in general. Definitely play Psychonauts 2, guys. I fully recommend it. It definitely gets a silver medal on my ratings. Be sure to check it out. Okay, everybody, that is my review of Psychonauts 2. I hope you enjoyed it. If you played Psychonauts 2, let me know what you think about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel for more great content like this. I'm Axel1324, and I will catch you guys next time.